Hi there, I'm Rose, and today on Book vs. Movie, I'm covering the book The Electric State and comparing it to the new movie on Netflix. Like a lot of people, I was super excited when I heard Netflix was making a movie out of Simon Stalenhag's masterpiece, The Electric State. Anyone who has come into contact with Stalenhag's book remembers the experience. I was in a high-end bookstore when I started paging through a copy of the book. The pages pull you in, Alice in Wonderland style, and you can't help but peer into them. The world he shows is beautiful and terrible. I wasn't in the store for long, but the book stuck with me. I left, and in the years afterwards, I kind of regretted not buying the book. So when I saw that they were doing a movie out of this book, I was psyched. You kind of know instinctively what the movie should be like, or I thought I did anyhow. The book shows a solitary road trip across a colorful post-apocalyptic wasteland. The book has very little text. It's more a succession of images of the trip through the western landscape. The power of the book lies in how unsettling these images are. They're heavily reminiscent of Star Wars, with the hazy, derelict ships, only with more corporate logos and dead people. The war has long since ended, and nothing but the hulks of the ships have been left behind. But then I saw the early reviews of the movie, and they were all bad. Nobody liked the movie. I knew before it even started the heavy sadness of one who knows that the book they had enjoyed was probably going to be torn up and repurposed. Still, I held a small hope that maybe the critics were just being too harsh. Maybe the movie would be okay. Maybe it wouldn't be great, but it would still be watchable. There are plenty of movies that are bad but are still enjoyable. Madam Web? Bad movie, but still entertaining. But then there's the other kind, where it's bad and not entertaining. The Electric State is that kind of bad, unfortunately. The kind where, if I hadn't been watching it to review it, I would have given up after the first hour. I would have gladly tapped out to watch something else, or read a book, or do the dishes. This is the other kind of bad. The long, boring, nonsensical kind. The movie supposedly cost Netflix $320 million, and it's hard not to watch it without keeping that number in mind. How was it so expensive? Where did the money go? There were a lot of actors and endless computer animation, but I spent a lot of the movie trying to figure out where the ridiculously excessive budget went. It is a spectacle in itself to watch that much money go up in flames. If they had burned bales of cash and filmed it, it would have been a similarly pointless spectacle. But maybe the most baffling thing about the movie wasn't the fact that it was bad, or even expensively bad, but the fact that it bore almost no relation to the book it claimed to be based on. This movie was almost entirely about robots. Simon Stalenhag's The Electric State is an art book with minimal text. It quietly chronicles the road trip of a girl named Michelle and her brother Chris, who is piloting a robot across a landscape strewn with abandoned ships, ominous towers, giant leviathans, and people with headsets strapped onto their heads. Most of those we see with headsets are either corpses that died with the headsets still strapped on, or are in herds walking towards an unknown destination. The images are all unsettling. Stunningly beautiful, but also profoundly unsettling. Stalenhag backgrounds every disturbing sci-fi image against a beautiful backdrop of the western states. The combination makes a science fiction world that feels instantly ominous. The towers loom, and the people have succumbed to addiction, but the plains and mountains endure behind them, still beautiful. One girl traverses the landscape, a survivor of a society that came to maybe the final stage of capitalism. Stalenhag's images are all ones of invasion, be it corporate, military, or of new gods. The goal and endpoint of the road trip is the body of the girl's brother, which is found emaciated and wearing a headset in a house on the Pacific coast. This boy is special, we're told, as he is the child of humans and the new Leviathan gods that seem to have evolved from the headsets. They don't tell us much more than this, and then the story ends with them going out in their canoe into the ocean. You want to make a movie out of this? Great. I'll take a pastel-colored post-apocalyptic wasteland any day. Is this what the Netflix adaptation was about? Absolutely not. The movie is, almost inexplicably, about robots. The Electric State as a movie has almost nothing to do with the book. It's almost depressingly far removed from its source material. You like the book? Too bad, you got robots. 1,000 stupid robots. You wanted a mecha battle, right? No? Too bad. In this version, Michelle still has a little brother named Chris who has a very special brain. But here, his special brain is capable of running all the server traffic for the company that runs the headsets. This company has stolen the boy away after a car accident and told his sister he died. The boy manages to transfer himself out into a robot and goes back to meet up with his sister again. The company is very eager to get their portable data center back, so Michelle and the robot boy escape to a robot reservation, helped by the rebel who plays by his own rules, Chris Pratt, who has his own robot friend named Herm. They all find an abandoned mall full of robots who have evolved and want to live in peace. The robots point the group to a scientist who lives in an abandoned amusement park. This scientist was the doctor who originally stole away the boy and hooked him up to the company's T1 fiber line. He explains that the boy's mind was the crucial piece in the humans winning the war with the robots, and that he had been in a coma at the time anyhow, and they didn't expect him to wake up. The company tracks the boy to their location, destroys the robot city, and takes the boy back to their corporate headquarters in Seattle. The girl says they all have to go and save her brother, and so the robots escape their reservation to stage a huge robot battle at the corporate headquarters. Once there, at the boy's request, Michelle pulls the plug on her brother, and AWS goes dark, taking out most of the internet. The robots declare victory and go back to living in peace, having just warred pretty damn hard, and are presumably then destroyed by the humans who had won the robot war and put them in the reservation at the beginning. This movie sucks so bad. Nothing makes any sense, and the writing is truly atrocious. Like, individual sentences are bad. Bad in the way that the first draft is bad, before you've gone through and edited. Nothing makes any sense at all. This kid has a magic brain, but he can transfer it into a robot? If that's true, why can't they just make a copy? But you absolutely cannot ask questions like this while watching the movie. It is a black hole, and that way lay madness. Why is this movie about robots? This was the most baffling aspect of the movie. How do you go from a somber, isolated road trip to a huge mecha battle? It wasn't until a few hours after watching it that I suddenly realized where I'd seen this story before. The whole time I was watching, I had this nagging sense that I'd seen this plot before. And then it hit me. This was the plot from Nier Automata. I think it was the robots in the mall in the electric state that finally jogged my memory, and once I got that bit, the rest slid into place with the clean metallic click of precision machined parts. I am not by any means a serious gamer. I cut my teeth on Sierra games like King's Quest, and then moved up to StarCraft in my adulthood, and then on to games like Skyrim. I don't play a lot of video games, and I have the appalling habit of leaving games unfinished, like I did with Nier Automata. I only played the first bit of the game. I haven't seen the 5 essential endings, and to be honest, I'm terrible at the kind of fighting used in this game. I'm not a good gamer, I just like playing once in a while. Nier is a truly unique, crazy beautiful fighting game. It has great music and a great story, and it looks just amazing most of the time. I did play long enough to get to the scene in the abandoned amusement park, and right after that you go into the village of peaceful robots who are tired of fighting. I think I stopped somewhere just after this, but it was more than enough to recognize the awkward port that the Netflix film attempted. See, Nier is about a race of androids fighting a race of robots on the surface of Earth in the distant future. The androids download into local bodies and travel around the game, where they fight the robots, who generally look like rusty trash cans. However, there's a group of robots on the surface who have decided to forego war, and have adapted a life of art and science instead. They're led by a robot named Pascal. They live in a tree village that looks kind of like the tree houses for the Ewoks. Pascal's village ends up being attacked and is destroyed by the machines. The two main characters in the game are a girl fighter named 2B and a boy scanner named 9S. They meet up later with a rogue named A2. The main characters have robotic gunner pods that fly around with them and provide backup support. The first big ending of the game, which again I didn't get to, involves 2B having to kill 9S after he contracts a virus. When he says that she can just download his backup, he says that it won't be who he is at the time. It won't be him. And 9S then manages to load his consciousness into the local machine network at the last moment. So I think Electric State just took this and stuffed it into the movie. Pascal and his village of friendly robots becomes Mr. Peanut and his mall bots. The robot Herm even looks a bit like the rusty trash can robots. Oh, it was so satisfying to see the similarity between this terrible movie and Nier Automata. Every weird plot point in this stupid movie suddenly made sense because it was being translated from a video game about a robot war. A bunch of robots attacking them in an abandoned amusement park? Check. Robots scavenging for spare parts? Check. You spend a lot of time in the game picking up parts for upgrades. A giant robot battle with huge mecha bots? Do you even have to ask? 9S even comes back as a giant mecha, standing up there at the very end. Just like Herm. Seeing some of the Nier set pieces appropriated for the movie actually made me think about how cool a Nier Automata live-action film would be. It would be so cool! Hot android dressed like a cosplay maid, fighting with a sword in a compelling location with a great story? I'm there. It's fun just watching the gameplay. Watching a live-action film would be great. But why did this film feel the need to be stuffed with robots? Road trip movies are pretty staple film fare. Even post-apocalyptic road trip movies have been done before. If you're going to buy the rights to a book about a road trip through a wasteland, why not make a movie about a road trip through a wasteland? I'm feeling like I'm not understanding the nuance of Hollywood here. Well, the joke is on Netflix because this movie sucked. They spent $320 million to do a thinly veiled video game adaptation, but it was incredibly bad. And whoever does have the rights to Nier should go make a movie. I would have loved to see 2B and 9S. As far as I'm concerned, I still haven't seen the movie for The Electric State. If Netflix ever actually wants to make the movie, they could give some indie director $1 million to go make this movie the way it should be made, as a rough road trip past the hazy hulks of decaying ships and people strung out on headsets. I still want to see that movie. So for book versus movie, in my opinion, the movie was just a bad adaptation of Nier Automata, so the book wins by default. It's a great book. Maybe someday someone will make a movie out of it. Who knows? Side notes. I truly encourage everyone to go check out the art by Simon Stalenhag. The book for Electric State is truly amazing, and he has posted art from all his books on his website, simonstalenhag.se. I spent a really fun evening just wandering through his site. If you can't afford the honestly rather expensive copy of his book, you can see a fair bit of the art from the book on his website. It's rare to see an artist post so much of his work, but if you want to see what the guy is all about, go check it out. Just wandering around his site is free, and it's a lot of fun. Another small quibble I had about the movie was that a lot of it didn't look like Stalenhag's art. There were a bunch of robots in the robot utopia, and the prevailing design aesthetic for the bots reminded me of the game Cuphead. This is a game I haven't actually played, but I saw the art all over the place when it came out. The robots in the movie Electric State all had heavily stylized cartoonish 1930s designs. That really wasn't something you saw in Electric State, but they did remind me a lot of Cuphead. Most of the robot side characters in Electric State looked like they could have been bosses in the game. They had almost the same design aesthetic. And may I just say that I was personally just a teeny bit horrified by the robots. They all gave me these serious animatronic willies. I was that kid who didn't much like the singing bears at Chuck E. Cheese. Not at phobia level, just I didn't like them. And all the cartoonish robots hit that same spot for me of disquieting and slightly horrific. And also, I wasn't super surprised to see Netflix walk back the dangers of the Neurocaster in the movie. People might not remember, but Netflix were big supporters of VR from very early on. Before the Oculus, Samsung had a VR headset you could buy that used your phone as its screen. I had one of these, still do as a matter of fact. One of the standout apps for the Gear VR was the Netflix app, which was a fully rendered VR living room from which you could watch content from your Netflix library. It was a gorgeous environment, and it was a good demo to show people what VR could do. So yeah, Netflix has been pro VR since the early days, and I don't think they were ever going to let a VR headset kill people in their movies. Thanks for listening, everyone. This is Rose with Rose-Colored Movies. The baddest ass on the task force. The baddest ass on the task force. The baddest ass on the task force.